I never thought I'd be 67 years old and feel like a stranger in my own home. But there I was, sitting in my living room in Richmond Hill, watching the snow fall outside, while my son and daughter-in-law spoke in rapid Mandarin across the dinner table, as if I wasn't even there. My name is Richard Morrison. For 42 years, I was a high school history teacher here in the Toronto area. I'd spent my entire career teaching kids about standing up for what's right, about the courage it takes to face injustice. Funny how life has a way of testing whether you actually believe what you teach. It had been 2 years since I lost Margaret. 2 years since cancer took my wife of 43 years. The grief was still fresh, still caught me off guard when I'd reach for her hand at night and find only empty space. But grief wasn't the only thing keeping me up at night anymore. After Margaret passed, my son Daniel insisted I move in with him and his wife, Lynn. "Dad, you can't manage that big house alone," he'd said, his voice full of concern. "Come, stay with us. We have plenty of room." At first, I was grateful. The house Margaret and I had shared for 30 years felt cavernous without her. Every corner held a memory. Every room echoed with her absence. So I sold the house, put the money in the bank, and moved into Daniel's place in Richmond Hill. Lynn had emigrated from Shanghai 6 years ago. She'd met Daniel at the University of Toronto, where he was finishing his MBA. They married quickly, had a son, my grandson Tyler, who was now 5. On the surface, everything looked perfect. Daniel had a good job in finance. Lynn didn't work outside the home, and they had a nice house in a good neighborhood. But something shifted about 6 months after I moved in. It started small. Lynn would speak to Daniel in Mandarin. Then they'd both look at me and switch to English. "Just talking about groceries," she'd say with a tight smile. Then it became more frequent. Entire conversations in Mandarin over dinner, while I sat there like a piece of furniture. "Daniel," I'd said one evening after she'd left the room, "why does Lynn speak Mandarin when I'm here? My Mandarin is, well, non-existent." He'd laughed it off. "Dad, it's just easier for her. English is still hard sometimes. Don't take it personally." But it felt personal. It felt like I was being slowly erased from my own life. The real wake-up call came about 8 months ago. I'd gotten up in the middle of the night for some water. As I passed their bedroom, I heard them talking. Even though I couldn't understand the words, I understood the tone. Lynn's voice was sharp, insistent. Daniel's was placating, defensive, and I heard one word clearly: "Father." They were arguing about me. The next morning, Daniel sat me down. "Dad, Lynn and I have been talking. We think it might be good for you to look at some senior living options. You know, places where there are activities, people, your own age." "You mean a nursing home?" "They're not called that anymore, Dad. They're retirement communities. Very nice places. You'd have your own apartment, medical care on site." "I'm 67, Daniel. I'm not dying. I walk 5 kilometers every morning. I volunteer at the library twice a week. Why would I need medical care on site?" He'd looked uncomfortable. "Well, you're not getting any younger. We just want to make sure you're taken care of." Taken care of. Those words haunted me. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing other things. Mail addressed to me would disappear. I'd ask about it, and Lynn would say she'd put it somewhere safe. My bank statements, my pension documents, my investment reports, all somewhere safe. One day, I went to my bank to check my account. The teller looked confused. "Mr. Morrison, according to our records, your statements are being sent to a different address now, and there's been a change to your account. Your son has been added as a joint account holder." I felt my stomach drop. When did this happen? "About 3 months ago. You signed the papers here." But I hadn't signed anything. Or had I? I tried to remember. Had Lynn brought me papers to sign? Had she said they were for something else? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the small bedroom they'd given me, the one that used to be their home office, and stared at the ceiling. "Margaret, what would you tell me to do?" And then I had an idea. It was crazy, maybe even paranoid, but I had to know. The next morning, I walked to the Richmond Hill Public Library. I'd been volunteering there for months, shelving books, helping with the computer literacy program. I knew all the staff. I sat down at one of the public computers and typed into Google, "Learn Mandarin Chinese." If they were going to talk about me, I was going to understand every word. I found a program called Hello Chinese. It was designed for beginners, with lessons you could do on your phone. That afternoon, I downloaded it. Every morning during my walk, I'd practice. Every evening, when I said I was going to bed early, I'd put in my earbuds and study. It was harder than anything I'd ever done. At 67, my brain wasn't as elastic as it used to be. The tones were impossible. Mandarin has 4 tones, and changing the tone changes the entire meaning of a word. I'd practice ma over and over. First tone, mother. Second tone, hemp. Third tone, horse. Fourth tone, to scold. One time I accidentally told the librarian her mother was a horse. She laughed. I died inside. But I kept going, because now I had a reason beyond curiosity. About 2 months into my studies, I was sitting at breakfast when Lynn took a phone call. She stepped into the living room but didn't close the door. She was speaking Mandarin, and for the first time, I caught a few words. Fuqin, father. Fangzi, house. Qian, money. My hands shook as I poured my coffee. I doubled my efforts. I added a second app, Duolingo. I started watching Chinese dramas with English subtitles, then with Chinese subtitles, then with no subtitles at all. I joined an online conversation group for Mandarin learners. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, I'd tell Daniel and Lynn I was going to bed early. Then I'd sit in my room with my laptop, practicing speaking with people from all over the world. 12 months into my secret studies, something clicked. I was watching a Chinese cooking show, and suddenly I realized I was understanding it. Not everything, but enough. The host was talking about her grandmother's recipe, about how food connects us to our memories, to the people we've lost. I thought of Margaret's lasagna, of her chocolate chip cookies, of the way she'd hum while she cooked, and I cried, right there in my little room, for everything I'd lost and everything I was still losing. But I didn't stop studying. By 18 months, my Mandarin was conversational. I could follow most of what Daniel and Lynn said, though I pretended not to understand. I'd sit at dinner, eating quietly while they talked over me, and I'd hear everything. "He's being stubborn," Lynn would say in Mandarin. "He won't even look at the retirement homes." "He's my father," Daniel would reply, but his voice was weak. "Maybe we should wait a bit longer." "Wait for what?" "He's just taking up space. Tyler needs his own room. And we need money for the renovation." Renovation? That was new. "What about the house money?" Daniel asked. "He must have gotten a good price for the Mississauga house." "It's sitting in his account doing nothing. If we had power of attorney, we could invest it properly, use it for things we need." My heart was pounding. I kept my eyes on my plate, chewing mechanically. "I don't know, Lynn, that's his money from selling his home. Mom's home." "Don't be naive. Who's going to take care of him when he gets older?" "We are. That money will be spent on his care eventually. Why not use it now, when we need it?" I excused myself from the table. My legs were shaky as I walked to my room. I sat on the edge of my bed and tried to breathe normally. They were planning to take my money. My house money. Margaret's house. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark and made a plan. If I was going to protect myself, I needed to know exactly what they were planning. I needed evidence. And I needed help. The next morning, I called my old colleague, Robert Chen. Robert had taught Mandarin at the high school for 20 years before retiring. His parents had emigrated from Taiwan, and he'd grown up bilingual. "Robert," I said when he answered, "I need your help with something, and you're going to think I'm crazy." "Try me," he said. I told him everything. About Lynn, about the Mandarin conversations, about my suspicions. I didn't tell him I'd been learning the language. Not yet. "Richard," he said slowly, "this is elder abuse. Financial abuse is serious. You need to talk to a lawyer." "I know. But first, I need to be sure. I need to understand exactly what they're planning." "What do you need from me?" "I need you to teach me legal terminology in Mandarin. Real estate terms, banking terms, power of attorney, things like that." There was a long pause. You've been learning Mandarin, haven't you? For 18 months. Richard, you sly dog. I could hear the smile in his voice. All right, I'm in. Let's catch these bastards. Over the next month, Robert and I met 3 times a week at Tim Hortons. Over coffee and Timbits, he taught me the vocabulary I needed. Contract, signature, transfer, title, trust, beneficiary. Every word that might come up in a real estate transaction or financial discussion. Your pronunciation is actually pretty good, Robert said one afternoon, for an old white guy. Careful, or I'll tell people you taught me to say your mother is a horse. He laughed. That was you? The librarians are still talking about that. But the laughter faded quickly. Richard, what are you going to do when you understand everything? When you have proof? I don't know yet, I admitted, but I'll figure it out. The breakthrough came in February. Ontario was in the grip of a brutal cold snap. The kind of weather that makes you question why anyone lives here. The temperature had been below -20 for a week straight. Lynn took a phone call in the living room. I was sitting at the kitchen table, supposedly reading the Toronto Star. But I was listening. Yes, I understand, she said in Mandarin. Next Tuesday at 10. Yes, we'll both be there. No, not yet, he doesn't know. She lowered her voice, but I heard, once we have the power of attorney signed, we can move forward with selling the property. My blood ran cold. When Daniel came home that evening, they went straight to their bedroom. I moved quietly to the hallway, my heart pounding. Through the door, I heard them talking. Lynn, the lawyer said, if we can get him to sign the power of attorney documents, we can list the house within a month. Daniel, what house? He sold his house 2 years ago. Lynn, the Muskoka cottage, you idiot. The one he inherited from his parents. I gripped the wall, the cottage. I'd completely forgotten. It had been in my family for 60 years. My parents had left it to me, but I hadn't been there since Margaret died. It sat on Lake Muskoka, 3 hours north of Toronto. Prime real estate. Easily worth $700,000, maybe more. Daniel, but that cottage has been in his family forever. We can't just sell it. Lynn, we're not selling it. He is. Once he signs the POA, he's giving us permission to handle his affairs. It's perfectly legal. Daniel, it doesn't feel right. Lynn, you want to send Tyler to private school or not? You want to renovate the kitchen? Your father is sitting on over $1 million in assets. He's one fall away from a nursing home anyway. We're his family. We should benefit. One fall away. The words echoed in my head. That night, I called Robert. They're coming for the cottage, I told him. And they have a lawyer's appointment on Tuesday. Do you have any documentation? Anything in writing? No. Everything is verbal. In Mandarin. Then you need to record them. In Canada, you're allowed to record conversations you're a part of. If you're in the room, it's legal. Robert, they don't even acknowledge I'm in the room. Even better. Record everything. I went to Best Buy the next day and bought a small digital recorder, the kind journalists use. It fit in my shirt pocket. For the next week, I recorded every conversation at dinner, every phone call I could hear, every argument they had in Mandarin, while I sat in the living room pretending to watch hockey night in Canada. By Monday, I had 7 hours of recordings. Robert helped me translate and transcribe the important parts. The evidence was damning. They'd been planning this for months, selling the cottage, using my house money for renovations, eventually moving me into long-term care and renting out my room. This is enough, Robert said. Take this to a lawyer. Today. I called Margaret's old lawyer, Dorothy Chen. Yes, another Chen. Toronto is full of them. Dorothy specialized in elder law and had helped us with our wills years ago. Mr. Morrison, she said when I walked into her office that afternoon, I'm so sorry about Margaret. What can I do for you? I handed her the transcripts. I need to protect myself from my son. She read through them, her expression growing darker with each page. When she finished, she looked up at me with something like fury in her eyes. This is financial abuse. We need to act immediately. Do you know they have an appointment tomorrow? Yes. That's why I'm here. Good. Here's what we're going to do. Dorothy worked fast. By the end of the day, she'd filed an application for an injunction preventing any changes to my property or accounts. She'd sent a letter to Daniel and Lynn's lawyer, putting them on notice that I was represented. And she'd set up an appointment with my bank for Wednesday morning to remove Daniel from my accounts and change all my access codes. "Do you have a safe place to stay?" she asked. "Because when they find out about this, there might be conflict. I'll stay with Robert for a few days." "Good. And Mr. Morrison? On Tuesday, when they go to their lawyer's appointment, I want you to come with them." I stared at her. "Come with them?" "Yes. I'll be there too. It's time to let them know you understand every word they've been saying." Tuesday morning arrived clear and cold. The sun glinted off the snow, making everything painfully bright. Daniel and Lynn were getting dressed for their appointment. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee, when Daniel came down. "Dad, Lynn and I have to go out for a few hours. Meeting with someone about life insurance." "Boring stuff. Life insurance. Right. Actually," I said in perfect English, "I think I'll come with you." Lynn appeared at the bottom of the stairs. "That's not necessary," she said quickly. "It's just paperwork stuff." "I insist," I said. "I haven't been out much lately. I could use the drive." They exchanged glances. I could see Lynn's jaw tighten, but they couldn't very well refuse without raising suspicion. The drive to the lawyer's office in Markham took 25 minutes. No one spoke. The tension in the car was suffocating. I sat in the back seat, watching the familiar streets go by, and thought about Margaret. She would have known what to do. She always did. We pulled into an office building on Highway 7. Daniel parked, and we all got out. My hands were shaking, but I kept them in my pockets. We rode the elevator to the 4th floor in silence. The lawyer's office was typical. Diplomas on the wall, law books on shelves, a receptionist who looked bored. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison," she said. "Mr. Wang is expecting you." "All three of us," I said. She looked confused, but led us back to a conference room. Mr. Wang stood up when we entered. He was young, maybe 40, with wire-rimmed glasses and an expensive suit. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison," he said, extending his hand to Daniel and Lynn. Then he looked at me. "And you are?" "Richard Morrison," I said. "Daniel's father. I believe you're expecting me." His face changed, just slightly. He glanced at Lynn, who'd gone pale. "Please, have a seat," he said. We sat down. Daniel looked confused. Lynn looked furious. I felt oddly calm. Mr. Wang opened a folder. "So, as we discussed on the phone, we have the power of attorney documents ready for Mr. Morrison Sr. to sign." "Actually," a voice said from the doorway, "I don't think that's going to happen." Dorothy Chen walked in, briefcase in hand, looking like a warrior in a business suit. Dorothy Chen, representing Mr. Richard Morrison. "I believe you received my letter yesterday, Mr. Wang." Mr. Wang's face went from confused to professionally blank. "Miss Chen, yes, I received your letter. I wasn't aware you'd be joining us. Mr. Morrison asked me to attend. Since this meeting concerns his assets, I thought it appropriate." Daniel finally found his voice. "Dad, what's going on? Why do you have a lawyer?" I looked at my son. At his confused face, his weak chin, the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. When had he become someone I didn't recognize? "Daniel," I said quietly, "I think it's time we had an honest conversation, don't you?" Lynn stood up. "This is ridiculous. Richard, you're clearly confused. That's why we need the power of attorney. To help you." "Bizui," I said. "Shut up." In Mandarin, the room went completely silent. Lynn's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Daniel's face drained of color. "Wado Jidao," I continued. "I know everything." And then I started talking, in Mandarin, about the cottage, about their plans to sell it, about the kitchen renovation they wanted to do with my money, about how Lynn had called me a burden, how she'd said I was one fall away from a nursing home, how they'd been planning for months to take control of my assets. I spoke for 5 minutes straight. Every word I'd heard, every conversation I'd recorded, every plan they'd made. My pronunciation wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. When I finished, I switched back to English. "I've been learning Mandarin for 18 months, Lynn. Every morning while I walked, every evening when I said I was going to bed early, I understood everything you said about me. Every single word. Lynn's hands were shaking. Daniel looked like he might be sick. Dad, he whispered. I didn't know. You didn't know I understood Mandarin. Or you didn't know it was wrong to steal from your father. It wasn't stealing, Lynn snapped, her composure cracking. You're old. You need care. We were just planning ahead. I'm 67, not 97. I walk 5 kilometers every day. I volunteer at the library. I'm in better shape than your husband. Dorothy pulled out her own folder. Mr. Wang, my client will not be signing any power of attorney documents. In fact, as of this morning, all of Mr. Morrison's accounts have been secured. His son has been removed as a joint account holder. The Muskoka property has been transferred into a trust, and we filed a report with the police regarding financial abuse. The police? Daniel's voice cracked. Attempted financial abuse, Dorothy clarified. Nothing was actually taken, thanks to Mr. Morrison's vigilance. But in Ontario, this is a serious matter. Mr. Wang closed his folder. I think this meeting is concluded. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, I'd suggest you seek independent legal counsel. We all stood up. As we moved toward the door, Daniel grabbed my arm. Dad, please, we can talk about this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face. I saw fear there, and shame. But I also saw something else. Relief, maybe. Like part of him was glad it was over. Daniel, I said quietly, your mother spent her whole life teaching you to stand up for what's right. She taught you to protect the people you love, not to exploit them. What happened to you? His eyes filled with tears. I don't know, he whispered. Figure it out, I said. Because right now, I'm not sure I know who you are anymore. I left the office with Dorothy. We walked to her car in silence. When we got in, she turned to me. That was incredibly brave, Mr. Morrison. I don't feel brave. I feel sad. I know. But you did the right thing. What happens now? Now we make sure you're protected. The trust is set up for your grandson, Tyler. When he turns 25, he'll inherit the cottage. In the meantime, you're the trustee. No one can sell it without your permission. And Daniel and Lynn? That's up to you. Do you want to press charges? I thought about it. About my grandson, who was only 5 years old. About Daniel, who was weak but not evil. About Margaret and what she would want. No, I said finally. But I don't want to live with them anymore. I anticipated that. Dorothy pulled out another folder. I've been looking at some options for you. Not nursing homes, she added quickly. Independent living apartments. There's a great place in North York, specifically for active seniors. You'd have your own one-bedroom apartment, but there's a community center, activities, a gym, people your age, who actually want to do things. I took the folder. I'll think about it. You do that. She drove me to Robert's house, where I'd been staying. I went up to the guest room and sat on the bed, feeling suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off, and reality was setting in. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Dad, please, can we talk? I didn't answer. Not yet. Over the next week, things moved quickly. Dorothy helped me find an apartment in the senior living community she'd mentioned. It was actually nice. Much nicer than I'd expected. Bright, modern, with big windows overlooking a park. My own kitchen, my own space, my own life. Robert helped me move my things out of Daniel's house. We did it while they were at work, like I was escaping. In a way, I was. Lynn called me once. This is all a misunderstanding, she said. We were just trying to help. By selling my family cottage without telling me? She hung up. Daniel tried harder. He sent texts, left voicemails, showed up at the library. Finally, 3 weeks after the confrontation, I agreed to meet him for coffee. We sat at Tim Hortons, the same one where Robert had taught me Mandarin. Daniel looked terrible. He'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Dad, he said, I'm so sorry. I know that's not enough, but I don't know what else to say. Tell me the truth. Was it your idea or Lynn's? He stared into his coffee. It started as Lynn's idea, but I went along with it. I told myself we were planning for your future, for your care. But really, I just wanted the money. For us. For the life I thought we deserved. And now? Now I see what I became. Lynn and I are in counseling. She's not who I thought she was. Or maybe I'm not who I thought I was. And Tyler? His face crumpled. He misses you. He asks about Grandpa Richard every day. That hurt more than anything else. I miss him too. Would you come see him, please? I thought about it. About my grandson, who hadn't done anything wrong. About how quickly childhood passes, and how much I'd already missed. Yes, I said. But not at your house. You can bring him to my place, and Lynn doesn't come. Okay, Daniel said quickly. Yes? Okay. Thank you. He did bring Tyler. The following Saturday, I heard a knock on my apartment door. When I opened it, my grandson was standing there, holding a drawing. Grandpa. He launched himself at me, and I caught him, feeling his small arms around my neck. Hey, buddy, I said, my voice rough. I drew you a picture. It's a cottage. Mommy said you have a cottage at a lake. I looked at the drawing. It was a child's sketch of a house by water, trees all around, a bright sun overhead. I do have a cottage, I said. Would you like to see it this summer? His eyes went wide. Really? Really? I looked up at Daniel, who was standing in the doorway. There were tears on his face. Come on in, I said. Let me show Tyler my new place. We spent the afternoon together. Tyler loved the community center in my building. There was a pool and an activity room with games. We played checkers while Daniel watched quietly. When they left, Tyler hugged me again. Bye, Grandpa. I love you. I love you too, buddy. After they were gone, I sat in my apartment and looked at the drawing Tyler had left me. A cottage by a lake. My family's cottage, which would someday be his. I thought about Margaret and about standing up for what's right. I thought about how easy it is to lose yourself, to let other people make you invisible. I thought about the past 18 months, learning a language word by word, tone by tone, until I could understand the truth. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Thursday night Mandarin conversation group. You coming? I smiled and texted back. Definitely. I wasn't done learning. Not by a long shot. That summer, I opened up the Muskoka cottage for the first time in 3 years. Robert came with me. We spent a week there, fixing the place up, making it ready. Then I invited Tyler for a visit. Daniel brought him, stayed for an hour, then left us alone. Tyler and I spent 3 days at the cottage. We fished off the dock. We roasted marshmallows. We looked at the stars. Grandpa, he said on our last night there, why don't we come here more? We will now, I promised him. Every summer, you and me. Can I bring friends? When you're older? Yes. This place will be yours someday, Tyler. It's been in our family for 60 years. You'll be the 4th generation to love it. He didn't really understand, but he nodded seriously. I'll take good care of it. I know you will. That fall, I started teaching a class at the community center. Intro to Mandarin for English speakers. 15 students showed up to the first class. All of them seniors like me. I started learning Mandarin at 65, I told them. If I can do it, anyone can. One woman raised her hand. Why did you start learning? I thought about how to answer that. About Daniel and Lynn. About feeling invisible in my own life. About the long journey from ignorance to understanding. Because I wanted to understand what people were really saying, I said finally. And I learned that knowledge is power. It's never too late to take that power back. The class went well. Students kept coming back. Some of them had similar stories. Family members who spoke other languages, feeling left out, pushed aside. We learned together. Daniel and I have a relationship now. It's not what it was, and it never will be. But we're working on it. He and Lynn are separated. He's in therapy, dealing with his own issues. Lynn went back to Shanghai. I don't know if they'll reconcile. And honestly, I'm not sure I care. What matters is Tyler. I see him every week. We go to the Royal Ontario Museum, to the Science Center, to hockey games. In the summers, we go to the cottage. He's learning to swim, to paddle a canoe, to identify trees. Last week, he said something in Mandarin, a phrase his mother taught him before she left. Why, Aini? Yeah. I love you, Grandpa. And I answered him in Mandarin. Woye ni, Tyler. His face lit up. You know Chinese? A little bit, I said. Want me to teach you some more? Yes. So now we're learning together. English and Mandarin, grandfather and grandson, building bridges where there were once walls. Last month, Dorothy called me. Richard, I wanted to tell you something. After your case, I've had 3 other clients come forward with similar situations. Adult children trying to take advantage of aging parents. Your courage inspired them to speak up. I'm glad I could help. You did more than help. You reminded me why I do this work. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, looking out at the park. The leaves were turning, brilliant reds and golds against the autumn sky. I thought about the past 2 years, about everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. Margaret, I did it, I thought. I stood up, I learned, I saved myself. And somewhere, I like to think she was smiling. I'm 68 now. I walk my 5 kilometers every morning, teach my Mandarin class twice a week, volunteer at the library, and spend every Saturday with my grandson. Next summer, Tyler and I are planning a camping trip to Algonquin Park. People ask me sometimes, don't you regret learning Mandarin? Wouldn't it have been easier not to know? And I tell them the truth. Ignorance isn't bliss. It's just ignorance. Knowledge gave me back my life. Yesterday, I got an email from one of my Mandarin students. She's 72, and she's been learning for 6 months. Richard, she wrote, I just had my first full conversation in Mandarin with my daughter-in-law. She was so surprised. She told me she was proud of me. Thank you for showing me it's never too late. It's never too late. That's what I want people to understand. Whether you're 60, 70, 80, or 90. It's never too late to learn something new, to stand up for yourself, to take back your power. You just have to be willing to do the work, word by word, day by day, tone by tone. And one day, you'll wake up and realize you understand, not just the language, but yourself, what you're capable of, what you deserve, who you really are. That's the real lesson I learned. Not Mandarin, though that was useful. The real lesson was this: you're never too old to save yourself, and you're never too old to begin again.